we have a very special guest here today. Reece George is joining us to talk about critical social marketing. So what we're going to be learning about today's particular case study in the Northern Territory and how it was implemented, why it went so poorly, and how we can apply really good marketing principles to potentially improve social marketing into the future. So just as a recap, social marketing campaigns have been identified by the World Health Organization as having the potential to contribute to the prevention of child maltreatment. So that's directly from the World Health Organization. So, as we already know, good social marketing is actually about behaviour change. So if we're not seeing changes in behaviour from our target audience, essentially the campaign is either ineffective or poorly planned, and hence why we're having a discussion today. So the structure of today's little conversation with Reece is going to follow. We will introduce a case study, for example, critique it and describe why it was poor, and then detail how it can be improved. So, Reece, I'd like to welcome you. Thank you for making your time available today to have a chat about this. So, can you just give us a little bit of background behind the case study, please?
The Australian government, they received a report in 2007. It was about the Aboriginal child sexual abuse in Aboriginal communities in the Northern Territory. So it detailed the extent of it, and it was quite disturbing, and it motivated the government to step in and make some changes.
Okay, so the campaign was essentially driven by the spread of, or the exposure of child sexual abuse in the Northern Territory. Okay, so can you just give us a little bit of a background of what the government did in the TER initiative?
Sorry, Michael, what was the question?
What they did.
What did they do? Okay, they came up with a plan, the Prime Minister and the Minister for Indigenous Affairs. They put more police into the communities, which was good in some cases and not so good in others. They gave all the kids health checks, which was a great idea, but then they stopped that after a couple of years because of lack of funding. They cleaned up and repaired the communities, which is another great idea, and they got people of the communities who are on social security benefits to actually do the clean-up work, and widespread alcohol restrictions.
So they obviously thought that alcohol was contributing to the child sex abuse. Okay, so I know they did a bit more, so...
Okay, so they brought in income management, and they restricted half of the welfare payment to only buying things that children would benefit from, like rent, food, clothing, shelter. They couldn't spend it on alcohol or gambling or pornography, and things like that. So they started managing Indigenous people's money for them. They tried to improve school attendance. They had meals at schools, which was a great idea too. And they took Aboriginal land off them, which is a bit unusual. And they improved some of the basic amenities to the communities. So,
and then they did take it that next step further, didn't they? They end up banning the supply of X-rated films.
Yeah, and pornography from the internet. That was they tried to stop that on all government
computers as well.
Yeah.
And in general, I think what you were telling me before is that they tried to impose an improved governance scheme, and they changed the way permit systems to access for Indigenous people to actually access their own land, which seemed a little bit odd to me when I read that. So
it was really questionable. Some of the things they implemented, and it's hard to really work out why when we're dealing with maltreatment of children. Why you actually take someone's land off them.
So just from what I hear, you've got this. It's kind of some of the programs, like the policing programs and the health checks, kind of seem a little bit more positive, but there's also some quite confusing initiatives within the plan as well.
I think they were government motivated. I can't really find why they did that.
Okay. So I've got a couple of questions for you. One was this successful from a social marketing perspective, and did these measures actually encourage the target audience to adopt a new behaviour, and that's to reduce the maltreatment of children?
Okay, it gets interesting now because the data shows that the incidence of reports about child protection increased by 136%.
Okay. So do you think that was because there was more incidents happening, or people felt more comfortable to report incidents?
The official explanation was that there was an increase in population.
Okay.
So
your second point is the one that intrigues me the most, and that's the vast majority of the increases occurred outside the Greater Darwin area, which imply that much of it occurred in the NTR communities. So you could, based on the statistics, you could easily argue that the initiative didn't work.
That's right.
Yeah.
All that.
So I think the main thing I want to have a chat about today is, like, why was it so bad? Like, why were the outcomes so poor, considering, as we just had a chat about, some of the initiatives were okay, some of them were not so good. So, like, what was so bad about the implementation of the plan?
The things that they implemented or proposed and implemented, they looked really good in themselves.
Okay.
A lot of them, you'd think, well, they're doing something about it. This is a really good idea. And at the time, the government was able to sell the idea to the mainstream Australian public, and generally everyone was in agreement with it and thought it was a great idea. But
I think that second point there screams to me the loudest.
They didn't do their research because they implemented the whole intervention incorrectly. They had all the information on how to deal with Aboriginal communities, but they just did not follow it. They did not look at it from an Indigenous perspective. They considered their own perspective and didn't consider the research.
And the thing that baffled me most when I was looking into, I was doing a bit of background into this, was that the United Nations Declaration on Human Rights for Indigenous People actually provides a framework for engagement, and they didn't even look at it.
Yeah.
And they definitely didn't even follow it. So it's not like they can't even plead ignorant. Like, they can't even plead, like, there's something already out there that's already been developed.
It's almost unexplainable. That you kind of got to find it amusing, but it's not. They've gone and they've taken away their basic human rights to.
It's laughable but not funny.
No.
So, and the other key thing is that they didn't actually get any consent of Indigenous people through representative institutions before adopting legislation. So not only wasn't there, and as we've got on the next slide, not only wasn't there consultation with the people, all the structures and the systems that they operate in, but it wasn't even dealt with from a consent perspective, where they didn't even actually go in there and ask people for their own consent to actually look into the matter in the first place, which, us coming from a university perspective, if we want to go talk to someone on the street for 2 seconds about a pack of Mars bars, we need to fill out a 30-page form, and they didn't even go through their own processes that they've got in place for everybody else, which is astonishing as well. So I understand about a year after the initiative was put into place that there was a review process.
Yes.
So can you just run us through some of the key findings through that review process, please?
Okay, this is how the Aboriginal people in the communities felt about the issue.
Okay.
So, this would have been a good thing to find out in the start.
Yeah, it would have.
They were of the belief that the measures were imposed based on race, which is true.
Okay.
And
obviously that bred a strong sense of injustice, didn't it? Because it's like, why are you picking on me when not everyone's being treated equally?
Yeah.
So, that I can totally get.
Yeah, child maltreatment isn't.
Yeah, it's not race-specific.
Aboriginal people.
Yeah. These 2 points, when you mentioned them to me earlier today, I found absolutely fascinating. So there was potential for support for the measures, but it was actually dampened by the way it was imposed. So as we just talked about, no consultation, no permission, not understanding the environment and the atmosphere and the organisations and the structures that are in place. So the plan wasn't necessarily bad; it was the way it was implemented that really had a negative impact. I found that really, really fascinating, which goes back to a key point that I want to make through this presentation, and that's, you can have really good ideas, but you have to understand the context, the human side, the social side to it. Oh, yeah. The way our own behaviour is very personal. So that, as we've got highlighted there, failure to engage constructively. That very key point is like, you need to plan the engagement. If you don't plan it correctly, you can potentially lose out. So I want to bring this back to marketing. We only have a couple of minutes left with Reece. So what can marketing and good social marketing practice teach us? What can we learn from this case study, Reece? Okay. Well, they didn't do some of the basics. That's certainly right.
They didn't understand their target audience, or whether they were ready to change.
It's important, yeah.
They didn't understand Indigenous values, lifestyle, the strength of the social networks, how Indigenous people actually want to change these things. They could have worked to their strengths and motivated in that way.
Yeah.
They didn't do it that way. They didn't understand how defensive Aboriginal people would be to being forced to do something or being told what to do.
If anyone's got a toddler, you know what that's like. But that's across every human at nearly every level at every age. If you force someone to do something, they're going to be reluctant to change their behaviour. They're going to be resentful of it, aren't they?
Yeah. Just gets in the way. Yeah.
So, and also, like, as you've got there, the barriers, benefits and motivations. I found that fascinating as well.
Yeah, it goes back to just understanding what motivates people out in these remote communities. There's obviously motivational factors there.
Yeah.
Because we're all parents and want the best things for our kids.
Yeah.
But,
so if you were to give the government, say, and all future governments or anyone out there who's in social marketing, what would be the one key piece of advice that you would give them? I'm guessing it's going to be something along the lines of understand your target audience, but is there one key takeaway that we can take out of this example?
Yeah, we can think that we understand a problem, and what we're doing is understanding it from our own perspectives and our own experiences.
I like that.
In life.
Yeah.
When that's not how other people view their own reality, so you have to take time to understand other people's reality.
I like that. Well, thank you very much, Reece. That was very enlightening, and thank you for the case study. I think sometimes we don't know what's happening in our own backyards, and it's really important to shed light on not only poor marketing practice and poor social marketing practice, but also what can we learn from them, because essentially they are teachable moments, and whilst this was a very unfortunate program and there was a lot of resistance to it, we can actually learn something from its failure. So thanks for coming in today and actually sharing that story with us.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.